Yeah, we've got a lot of people from Sri Lanka coming today. So
cool.
So all right, so we're gonna be starting in about 2 minutes, guys. Just welcoming people.
Oh, previous Cambodia people, Sudata, Vayan.
Hi, Bapak Christian. No, me together with Cesar, we are from Bali, on behalf of Green Village Bali. Thank you, and very glad to join this. Yeah, very great webinar.
Another beautiful place.
Similar. We are the same route, but we stuck in the different island, I think.
So we'll be starting in about a minute, guys. The video is recorded for everyone to know, and it's also live right now on Facebook. So I'll be taking questions. So if you're on Facebook watching this live, you can also ask questions, and to the best of our ability, we'll try to answer. So, hey, let's start. I invite everyone to just close your eyes. Let's take a minute of meditation to center ourselves before we dive in. So just close your eyes. And take a deep inhale. And exhale. One more time, inhale. And exhale. And I invite you now to check in to your environment, hearing the different sounds around you, and just checking in. How do I feel? Why do I feel in the space I'm in? I invite you now to check into our little group, our energy, maybe energy of other people you know in the group. Just check in how you feel in this group. And finally, let's take a few breaths for you to connect with yourself. A little moment of awareness. How am I feeling today? What's going on? I invite you now to check in. What is my intention? Why am I here? Why am I here today? Maybe a bit more general. Why am I here? Everyone inhale. And exhale. All right. Let's dive right into it. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. I think it's very early for Europe, so we mainly probably have people from Asia, but you might watch the recording of this series. So this is the first episode of a 10 session that we're going to be running every Monday at the same time. And if you are registered, you will be using the same access code to come every Monday. I invite you to also, if you enjoy it, after to share it, so we get more people to connect to this kind of messages. If you enjoy what's gonna happen, and yeah, so that's what we are gonna do. So because it's our first episode, I thought it would be nice to start by taking a little bit of time introducing ourselves, who we are, why we have decided to do this this series, why we feel this is absolutely crucial and important and the right time to do so. So we'll start with that. After that, we'll flow into a conversation. You will see that we are fully aligned with Christian. So we'll flow into different topics. Today is about staff retention. And after that, we'll open up for questions, both in the live on Facebook and people who are there. So don't hesitate to use the chat to ask some questions. I'll filter them, and then I'll ask mainly Christian, or I'll try to answer as well. Okay. And again, I'm really stoked. We have like 54 people right now live with us. So that's pretty humbling and very exciting, as it just started like just an idea of, both have always a great time when we connect and chat. We thought, hey, maybe some other people would be interested in listening to our crazy ideas. So let's start, and maybe let's give you, Christian, the opportunity to begin. Can you give us a bit of an introduction about you, where you are right now, the property, and maybe what you've done in the past, and start talking about your values and what you stand for?
Good morning, and indeed a warm welcome from Siem Reap, Cambodia. We're in the middle of a downpour because our raining season has started, so fingers crossed everything will go okay. Now, the following, what I'm going to be telling you for the next few minutes, might sound a little bit arrogant and all those things, and I honestly do not mean it that way, but I think it explains things quite a lot. We're a small hotel here in Siem Reap with only 36 rooms, 2 pools, 2 lobbies now, and we're aiming for the higher end type of guest. Over the past 5 years, I've been able to get into the Tripadvisor top 20 hotels globally on 4 different occasions. I've been number 2, number 3, number 11, and number 19 over the past 5 years. We have also won many other awards and have had quite a large amount of media from New York Times, Newsweek, Condé Nast, and all of those other things. All of that without a PR company, all of that without a single brochure, all of that without any trained salespeople. My one sales staff actually used to work on the garbage mountain in just outside Siem Reap province about 15 years ago. And when I first met him, he was a dishwasher at my very first hotel 15 years ago. I've been indeed in Siem Reap now for 15 years. And in my opinion, it's one of the most spectacular places on planet Earth. Most other countries are ahead of us. I mean, especially places like Bali, and I see that a few of you are indeed from Bali, are 10, 15 years ahead of us. Cambodia right now is going through its wave of COVID cases, and our government has decided to use this time to do roadworks and work on a $150 million renovation project with regards to drainage and water filtration systems and all kinds of other stuff. I personally don't particularly like hotels, and it sounds strange if I'm running one, but I believe that the vast majority of hotels are merely money-making machines. And whilst I do agree that every single hotel should be commercially viable, there are ways of making it less obvious. There's a lot of things that I don't really understand, and I'm sure we'll come over it afterwards, but and that I wanted to do different. When we started Jaya House River Park, Jaya House Hotels here 4.5 years ago, we set out from the beginning to be plastic free. We set out from the beginning to have the best healthcare system of any hotel in the country. And we wanted to use $5 of every room every night to be divided over 3 different NGOs. So I would be writing a check every single month with money for them that they spend as they see fit, in order to be real.
Christian, I'm gonna stop you before you enter into what you're doing. At this stage, I just want us to get a picture of who you are. Can you tell us about your career a little bit?
I started a long time ago. Well, I started as a waiter, as a dishwasher actually, a very long time ago. Then became a waiter, and in 1996, I was terminated from my then job, and by miracle, I applied for Delta Airlines in Amsterdam actually, but they replied that, sorry, we're not going to go into your interview because we're moving offices to London. And I said, well, I'll go with you. stayed there for 7.5 years, ended up working personally for Richard Branson. And that's where I think I learned how to think differently. I think it's one of the best genius people on this planet, because he does do things differently. Then, unfortunately, I was caught smoking at Heathrow Airport, which is apparently not allowed. So they closed Heathrow Airport for me, and again was terminated. Then moved to, during a birthday party, I said out loud, why not I move to France or to Canada or to a French-speaking country? I was told that I won't ever be able to do that because I don't speak French. And so 6 months later, I was living in Paris and working for Le Royal Monceau, which is now a Raffles. But in those days, it was supposed to become a Mandarin Oriental. And the day before Mandarin Oriental and the property owners split up, the GM, Christophe Mares, he asked me to resign. And which is a bit strange if your GM asks you to resign with a smile. So I did. And the next day, he offered me a job in New York or Singapore. Long story short, I chose Singapore, ended up at Mandarin Oriental Singapore, stayed there 2.5 years, moved to Vietnam, to Nam Hai. There, unfortunately, only a year and a half, because my mother was diagnosed with different types of cancer. And so moved back home to take care of my mother. And whilst I was at the airport in Saigon, waiting for my plane back home, my first hotel in Cambodia called, asked if I was interested in a job there. They waited 6 months or 7 months, and that's now 15 years ago, and that was then Hotel de la Paix. So that's, my career is a little bit strange, I think, but I'm a lucky person that I have honestly never worked for money. I've worked because I like working. I like being where I am. And I've come to the realization a few weeks ago that I actually do not have a CV because I've never needed one. So I'm a lucky person.
Christian, can you tell us a little bit about one of the initiatives that really got us together and to connect, which is Refill, Not Landfill? Tell us about that initiative.
I came to the realization that I've always been very anti-plastic and very a lot of stuff. But I've always thought that it should be someone else who does something. Why should I be the one who does something on my own? And so I posted a lot of things about people, supermarkets should ban plastic, hotels should do this, everyone should do something, but not me. Until one of my friends told me to basically either, in plain English, shut up or do something myself. And that was a little bit hard-hitting and made me realize that, okay, perhaps you have a point. And at that same time, we were opening Jaya House. And I realized that if I want to continue being such a vocal person, then I should do something myself. So Jaya House was going to become plastic-free. But what happens if one of my guests wants a bottle of water for when they go and see the various temples here? So we came up with a system solely for us, of a refillable bottle that people could go to different places in Siem Reap and fill up their bottle with drinking water free of charge, using Google Earth and using basically technology and the QR code that is already on our various telephones and stuff. That little initiative in the beginning didn't really work because it was too expensive for us all by ourselves, but more and more people became on board, and it has now grown to 19 countries, and it has given me the Afar Media Travel Vanguard 2020 award. The person in front of me was the lady from Booking.com, and so I was invited to come to Puerto Rico and do a speech there to the American Association of Travel Agencies or something, in order to spread the word. And that's what we've done. Obviously, due to COVID, things have, well, completely stopped actually. I mean, we have not had any guests now for, I think it's 14 months. So it's unfortunately a little bit stopped, but I do believe that sincerity, plastic-free, a word is a word, all of those things, that is the future. And Refill Not Landfill or Refill the World, it's not something that I'm earning on, but not a single penny. I don't want that either. It needs to be, I want it to be to be used by anyone who wants to use it and anyone who wants to make a difference, because I do believe we can all do that.
Thank you. Great intro, and there's already a lot of nuggets I want to dive into. I just want to introduce myself first. And again, for everyone who's been joining, we are having 10 sessions of 2 hours connecting with Christian and talking about hospitality with the intention to redefine standards of hospitality for after COVID. We feel that we have an amazing opportunity now. Cars have been reshuffled. It's time to do things differently. The way we've been operating, well, obviously doesn't work. So how can we reinvent ourselves as humans, but also as operators? And that's a little bit our intention, to just throw some new concepts and ideas and maybe old ones, and just, use that space for inspiration and connection. So as for me, my name is Alex. I also have 25 years experience in hospitality. I started as a cook, but a little bit like you. I think my first job was dishwasher, and I ended up breaking more plates, and it was for a 3-star Michelin restaurant. So I think every plate that I broke was, a few days of my salary. So the chef decided I should do something else than being in the dishwashing department. And I, after that, managed restaurants, hotels. After that, I moved towards a concierge, and I had a concierge business in France, private concierge business. And recently, I've started about 8 years ago, a booking website for eco hotels, and I was passionate about sustainability. That didn't work, but I got to connect with about 5,000 eco-minded hotels and their practices around the world. So I really got to connect with incredible humans and understand what is sustainability. And it's a topic that is dear to me, and I have a lot of opinion on what is sustainability. So we can dive into that maybe in another episode. That's not the theme today, to some extent. And I shifted towards building a community now of about 200 mindful business owners called Be Greener, and it's only in Bali, with the idea that if we can make an impact here and change here, then after that, we could have a model that could be duplicated and basically have a more collaborative mindset among operators. And we started a lot of initiatives. Inspired by Christian, we started Refill Bali, which then became Refill My Bottle, for some of you who have heard of it. And we're also in 60 countries with the app now. We've supported people after Agung eruption, the different natural catastrophes. We had earthquakes in Sulawesi and Lombok, and the communities every time coming together. And during COVID, we started something called the Bali Pledge, with the idea of saying that mass tourism is dead. We're entering the era of intentional travel. So how can we shift the type of and attract the type of tourism that we want to have in our properties, in our destinations? We could choose our customers. And how do you choose your customers? How do you get better customers? And that's a bit of a taboo probably topic to say that, but yeah, that's really was the intention with the Bali Pledge. Says, okay, you want to come to Bali, this is what we stand for. If you feel aligned with that, you are welcome. And it's basically honoring the value of Trihita Karana, which is in my words, the definition of sustainability, the right way of defining sustainability, which is connection between man and man, connection between man and nature, and connection between man and God. And I find that often spirituality is the element that is missing when we talk about sustainability, which is always about data and measuring things, but not often about things that are less tangible and measurable. So that's my take on all that. I'm also kind of a coach, I'd say. I started something called Breathing Cold, and I teach people breath work and authentic relating, and I have an ice bath here and enjoy these practices. And that's also what I do here in Bali. And the reason I do it, just to close, is I believe that once we have a beautiful connection with ourselves, then we can connect with others. And I think that's something that we're going to touch in our discussion with Christian, is sometimes we feel we have to be focused on others, but we focus ourselves. And if it doesn't come from the right space, then of course it doesn't feel genuine. And that's something that is really dear to me. And I believe that we really can make a change in the world just by holding space for people to be connected to themselves. So yeah, that's a little bit of background about me. Okay, now let's dive right into it. Before we start into the topic, I want to hear a little bit from you, because I know you've told me about it in the past and I really loved it. Tell me a little bit what you got from connecting with Richard Branson. You say it was quite an important step in your career and a fundamental. So tell us a little bit about what you took away, the golden nuggets of working with Sir Richard.
The man is, I think a description of the word unconventional. He's dyslexic. He can't really read. He can't really write, and that's an actual fact. If something goes wrong, he's the last person you want to have around, because he will give everything away. But he is able to think on his feet, and he is able. He doesn't have any boxes in his head, so therefore he can't put things into boxes. And he does what he feels is right. And sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't work. He aims for the absolute sky, clearly, literally, and he just gives it a go. And if it works, it works. And if it doesn't, then it doesn't. For him, I have been based in Lagos, Nigeria for 9 months, just before 9/11. And that was a risk. We started with 2 flights a week, and he gave away a lot of flights because Nigerian Airways in those days had just collapsed, to bring everyone home and all of that stuff. He did that free of charge. And a year later, that little risk paid off, and he got daily flights from Nigeria. So I hired the cabin, or I co-hired with 8 others, the cabin, the crew, and things like that. So it's about being creative. It's about following your heart. It's about doing what your gut feeling says, and not what, by definition, the book of how to run a hotel says, because that book is now outdated. I very strongly believe that boutique hotels, independent hotels, those really have the future. They're in a much better position to earn decent revenue compared to the big chain hotels. Look, they will always exist, including myself. If I need to go for work, I don't, but would have to go to work to a big city somewhere that I've never been. There's a good chance I'll book a chain hotel, just because it's clean and functional. But we all know that also there's a lack of atmosphere in those properties, which is something that only the boutique hotels can do, because those are based on a personality. And the whole Virgin brand is based on his personality of just taking risks. And indeed, there's lots of things that have failed for him, Virgin Brides and others. But there's also quite a few things that have worked out pretty well for him. And that's what I've been allowed to take away from working with him.
Christian, once I heard an interview of him, I was like 30 years ago, and people saying, it's easy for you to be happy. You've got, a private island, those 2 hot blonde girls as assistant next to you, and all the money in the world. So of course you're smiley and happy. And his reply says, no, guys, you got it all wrong. It's because I'm happy that I got the island. It's because I'm happy that I've got the blonde girls next to me and all that. And it's the idea of reverse engineering. Most of us are saying, once I get there, once I have this, whether it's success or power or love, then I'll be finally happy. But once you realize that it's an inner job and it's the opposite, you start with the emotion. And once you've got that, you bring it out. And I wonder how much of that you applied in the hospitality context with your staff.
I said earlier that I honestly haven't worked. I have not had a job for the past 15, 20 years. I've never worked for money. I've never applied for any job. They've always just happened to come my way somehow. And I've always aimed much higher than what I traditionally would have to do, basically, to earn a few dollars. We live one life, and if some of my friends they would post on social media that on a Sunday evening that, oh God, why is the weekend so short and I have to go to work tomorrow. I'm glad I don't have that life. If I would die tomorrow, then I've had the most spectacular life. I've done things that not many other people have done. And probably a prime example of that is me talking before I was able to think. That happens quite a lot to me. I'm pretty sure you guys remember the meeting in Singapore between Donald Trump and the North Korean government. Well, the week before that, we had delegations here in the hotel from North Korea, the United States, UN, UK, Japan, China, and a few others to prepare that Singapore meeting. Obviously, Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un were not here, but the number 3 of North Korea was in the hotel for a week. And that worked out all pretty well, and amazing people, by the way. But one of them said at some point, oh, why don't you come to Pyongyang and do a speech at the University of Pyongyang? And I said, of course, no problem. Don't worry, I'll go. It's not an issue. Ha, ha, ha. Laughing, thinking that would never happen. I mean, who else? I mean, who am I to be able to go to Pyongyang? So I said that without thinking. A few months later, received an email. If I'm still interested in to come to Pyongyang. And by then I was I was a bit like, I can't go back now. I can't say no. I've already said yes, so I should. You take first step, then you need to do the next step. So yeah, fine, that's good. I'm happy to do that. So yeah, I went to Pyongyang 5 days. I have to admit, was completely scared. My brain physically told me that I'd broken my arm, my leg, anything, so I couldn't go. I was shaking when I was in Beijing airport, about to board the plane to Pyongyang, but went and had the most spectacular time. I did a speech in front of 400 students from 400 North Korean students, and saw big amounts of the country. And I was supposed to go back last year, but then COVID happened. And it's where my brain, it's a prime example where my brain eventually said that I should never meet, don't go, because we all know the stories. But I somehow did and followed what my gut feeling, and it turned out to be okay. Yeah.
Christian, I want to dive into the topic, and I really want people to get away with a lot of nuggets on how they can apply that to their operation. So let's dive into staff retention, and tell us how this philosophy, how do you apply it in every day in your in your property? How does that in the way you manage the businesses and the resorts?
It started off with me asking the question. This is before we opened. We had 10 staff that turned out to become the heads of department, and we needed another 90 or so at all levels. But I asked the question amongst the 10 of us, why do I not see any handicapped people in any hotel in Siem Reap? And that took everyone back, that question. They discussed it in Khmer. And eventually the answer for that is because tourism doesn't want to see ugly people. That was the answer of one of my staff members. And that's mainly because handicapped and ugly, those two words are very close in the Khmer language. So that hurt me personally. I think, so a tourist doesn't want to see an ugly person and therefore they don't get hired. That's wrong. So I again asked the question, what do you guys think if I would say, now if somebody says that my staff is ugly, then let me book another hotel for you. I mean, let me book a chain, let me book anyone you want, but don't stay here. And we were still just the 10 of us. 2 of my staff started to cry. And this is, I mean, that doesn't happen obviously in Khmer culture or in any culture. And that shocked me a little bit. It turned out to be that both of them have a staff member that is handicapped. Either one of them has Down syndrome and the other one is physically handicapped. So from that moment on, it was clear that we don't care. So I now have staff members. I have one member that's paralyzed on the right-hand side of his body. He taps with one hand. He's in reservations. I have a gentleman with lepra. He's in gardening. No, name it. We have staff members that are human trafficking victims, sexual assault victims, all of those people working with us. I have a gentleman who he's about 1.30 meters tall because his back is bent. There was an issue with his birth. And that created such a pride amongst the rest of the staff because we're all the same. I am lucky that I'm born in the family where I'm born, that I've never been abused, that my parents were not alcoholics, and nothing has ever really gone wrong in my life. But that's not my credibility. That's not because I am such an amazing person. That's pure luck. And for the same amount of money, in a strange kind of way, I could have been born in a family in Cambodia where 20 years ago I would not have had food. Or I would have not been able to eat more than 4 times a week, just a bowl of rice. So it's when we realize that we're not that special. It's not like, oh, look at me, I have an education and I have this and I have that. That's why I've been able to get to where I am. I have staff members that have a much bigger career than I have. It's just they started at a different level. And that's why we're right now at a different position. But with that as a basis, we've implemented, as I said, the best healthcare of any company in the country. That was number one. Not the best salaries, not the highest salaries, but not the lowest salaries, just middle of the range, just a normal salary.
Can you describe a little bit the healthcare system? What do you mean by the best healthcare? What do you offer?
Well, we basically pay for everything. That's really what it comes down to. We've also done trainings on in a developing country where doctors earn by the type of medicine they prescribe and the amount. Obviously, if I would go now, being perfectly healthy today, would go to a doctor, I would come out of that doctor within 30 minutes with a whole list of medicines that apparently I need. Some of them being vitamin A, B, C, and God knows whatever else. Also because he earns money. So we've done a training on that just the healthy living is perhaps better than going to the doctor once a month. And I had a lady who had an abscess in her neck. We've paid for that. And she had to be home for, I think, 2 months. And that's fine. Just be at home and be at the hospital and that's all of that stuff. We will pay for that. And when you come back, you will still have your job. So you don't have to stress about that. You don't have to worry about that. We will collectively take care of you. And one day it's that lady, the next day it's that guy, and so on. But that creates a sense of belonging. It creates a sense of safety. And that eventually pays off in service levels, in all kinds of other stuff. On the same note, we have a few laws here in the hotel. 1, don't come to work drunk. 2, don't do drugs. And 3, you need to wear a helmet. And it sounds strange, but if I see, or one of my senior people sees, one of the staff driving on a motorbike without a helmet to work, from work, or on their day off, they receive a fine, and it's in their contract. And they've all signed for it. They've all agreed. They've all been explained why. They would receive a fine of $50 US, which is an enormous amount of money. I mean,
what's the average salary, so we can in dollars, so we can have an idea?
Average salary in the hotel is the minimum salary is $170 US, plus tips and service charge. So $50 fine if for driving without a helmet is quite a lot. But we've explained why, and obviously, I mean, the very first time. This is in week 3 that we were open. I gave one of my senior people, I gave him $50. He would then drive in front of the hotel without a helmet. I called him. We charged him the $50 that I just gave him. And as a result, no one has ever done it. But as a result of that, here in Cambodia, there's still a lot of people that believe that you should never wear a helmet. For the very simple reason that a comedian years ago said that it stops your brain growing. So don't wear a helmet, because if you want to become intelligent, then your brain needs to have space. So don't wear a helmet, and it obviously messes up your hair. So for this law to be basically against what the majority of people believe, it took a while, but none of my staff have lost their lives, and I've done this in all 3 of my hotels for the past 15 years. And in the hotel before this one, when I left, then the new management decided that that's ridiculous. They're not going to do that. So they stopped it. Everyone can do whatever they want. 6 months later, a chef came back from a wedding party, had 1 or 2 beers too many, and met a tree. His body was on the right, his head was on the left. That within minutes, because in Cambodia we post everything on Facebook, within minutes, I received literally 20, 30 different messages from previous staff saying, now we understand, boss, and we wish you were still here and all of those things, but now they understand why I was having that helmet law. So it's about sincerely taking care of your staff and sincerely dealing with their issues. And I vast majority of my time I spend dealing with my staff and their issues. Normally that goes okay, and that's all fine. The most extreme story, and I'll be quick. Was a gentleman in housekeeping, Badr Jr., that I saw him walking past, and on day 1 he limped a little bit. And are you okay? Yeah, fine, boss. Okay, good. The next day was a bit worse. The 3rd day he was really, really limping. So, okay, come to my office. What's up? So he was standing in front of me, and the office here, everything is open basically, so everyone can look in. If the door opens up and a guest walks past, they can also see. And so he was standing in front of me, and it was very quiet. He was very quiet, and he said, "Bong, what's up? What's the story?" And he stands with his back towards the door. He unzips his trousers, drops them, so he now stands in front of me half naked. It turns out to be that he had testicular cancer, and but he was standing half naked in front of me. If that door would have opened up, it would have not been a pleasant picture, image-wise. I mean, the GM has half naked staff in front of him. So obviously, let's put up the trousers back. And so I went with him to the doctor and to the hospital, and we paid for the whole thing. It was $1,400. And now, thank God, everything is fine now, and everything after a few months, everything was okay. But that was probably one of the most extreme cases of taking care of my staff. And obviously, everyone knows everything amongst the team, and as a result, there's always been such a pride in working here that if a guest comes in and asks a question, because guests prefer to talk to my staff and not to me, they're all very proud of working here. They're all very happy, I would like to think, of working here. So that's the most extreme.
Thank you, Christian. And I just want to pause and just maybe you've said a lot of amazing nuggets there. I just want to rephrase them for everyone to fix them, because it's really fundamental. So the first one is that we are one. We're a mirror of each other, and people you surround yourself with influence who you are. You know, there's part of the brain, it's mirroring brain. You know, your neighbor has a nice car, you want the same nice car. We are imitating each other and we're copying each other all the time. That's a really important thing to understand when you understand how the brain works. And once you understand that and you accept that, then really that idea of taking care of one staff, you took care of that person, or you took care of the person who was a handicapped, and bringing them, what it does to everyone else, you said it, is huge. And it's really creating that idea, oh, this person really cares. And what is hospitality if it's not an industry where we want people to care? Whatever you give, you're going to receive. But if you don't receive it, how can you give? You cannot give what you don't have. So people that are not taken care of, they have nothing to give. So you cannot expect the staff to give to the guest if they haven't received initially. So it's really absolutely fundamental, that idea that, yeah, when I'm taken care of, then all of a sudden I am in the space where I can also give. The fundamental things that we need as humans is we need to be seen, we need to be heard, we need to feel safe. And if we are not provided by that, of course, in Maslow hierarchy, you need to be fed, and those basics, fundamental things. But as a human at an emotional level, you really need those elements. And if you don't get them, then of course you cannot be in a place where, you said it, where you can access some form of happiness. And on top of that, there's appreciation, admiration, so that now you can strive in your position. And I love that you said that. You said the guests don't want to talk to me; they want to talk to my staff. Often I see GMs that are overly connecting with the guest. And, I always refer to everyone, there is one leader, I mean, maybe no longer the case with COVID, but one leader in hospitality, which is Airbnb. Airbnb is a completely revolution, and is the company that we were looking at in terms of hospitality standards. That what do they do at hospitality? They take care of the host. They don't take care of the guest. You don't see communication on Airbnb about the guest. No, it's the job of the host to take care of the guests. It's the job of the GM to take care of the staff, and it's the job of the staff to take care of the guest. And, I see the GM often as an image as a conductor. If you're a conductor, you're kind of useless. You don't even have an instrument. So if you only have the conductor, there is no even a sound coming out of this guy. But it's really that idea of, okay, if you want the instruments to sound well together, you still need someone to create some harmony. And I really like that idea of being behind your staff and getting them to actually be in a position of thriving. So yeah, thank you for those, because there were quite a lot of golden nuggets there. Let's dive a little bit further, because I want to hear some examples of those standards that you've put in place. And one of them that struck with me, two stories that I remember you telling me, and then I'll let you jump in. The first one is, if someone gets hurt, if a client gets hurt, whoever is next to that guest is in charge of taking care of the guest. So if a kid is falling in the garden, the knee is bleeding, and the gardener is there, the gardener is staying with the kid and making sure that the kid is okay. In any hotel I've been, you have, if it's a nice hotel, you have a guest relation manager, and the gardener is going to the head of department and says, so you have this disconnection, but the person you're emotionally connected with is the gardener they picked you up when you were not well. That's the first. Maybe you can talk about that and how you implement that, because I found that really, really striking as a way of operating. The second one is when, I don't know if it's still accurate, but when a housekeeper finds tissues in a bin in a room, they communicate to the restaurant, and when the guest of that room goes to the restaurant, the staff of the restaurant will bring a herbal tea, saying that a little voice told them they could use some of that. The idea is like, if you're either sad or you're sick, an iced tea is probably a good idea. So any reason you have tissues in a bin, probably a tea is something that could bring. And that blew my mind. I mean, this is at the same time obvious, simple, straightforward. There's nothing crazy about it, but no one's doing it. So let's go.
Well, first of all, being sick is not a pleasant experience, and for a lot of my guests, Cambodia is already a little bit scary on a normal day. So if you're also sick, then it becomes a lot more scary. And Do they know? Do they have healthcare? Are there hospitals here? Do those doctors know what they're doing, and all kinds of other stuff? So we always send a staff member with the guest to hospital. And indeed, it's whoever connects the most with a guest, that person will go with. All of my staff have received English classes, and studying English is a critical part of working here. So close to everyone speaks English. But it's about being able to be the translator between whatever the nurse or the doctor says to the guest, and also to make them feel calm, and to stay in touch with the hotel and myself, that if there is something, that we can take care of that. In extreme cases, I will obviously go myself. So during the hottest month of the year, April, I tend to go to hospital about once a day for my guests. So yeah, it's about that additional sense of there's somebody here that cares for me, and instead of just being a foreigner in a different country, having to deal with the whole medical system. Now, that's indeed what we do. So one day it's an F&B guy, the next day it's a housekeeping person, it's myself, it's front office, it's whoever has the connection with the guest. How do your issue with regards indeed to the tea? That's the thing. I mean, in Cambodia is a country where we don't really have any major educational system for the ones that are adults now, so the ones that I could employ. So how do I explain to people the levels of service that I want to people that have never been to school? It's everything has been explained. This is your house. If I go to your house, would you know, we agree to meet each other at your house at 2:00. But for some reason, I'm ending up early and I'm there at 10:00 in the morning. Would you tell me that, hey, Christian, wait outside and I'll see you at 2 because we said 2:00 and it's only 10 now? Or would you say, hey, wow, a bit early, but come in? Most of the people that I call my friends would let me in at 10:00 in the morning. Why does a hotel say no? Why does a hotel say, sorry, check-in time is 2:00? Unless you pay money, then it's fine. But otherwise, just wait outside. That's wrong. So if I go to my friends or my staff go to their friends and they go into their house, they'll get a drink. But would that stop after that first drink, or would they be able to get a second drink if they're really thirsty for whatever reason? No, that presumably they would be able to get a second drink. So that's the philosophy behind the hotel, and that's how we've explained every single detail. And if you're at home with your family and you see that your nephew, your niece, your mother, your father, whoever is seriously sick or is not feeling well, wouldn't you make them a cup of tea? And Cambodia being a country where things are still, thank God, very natural, yes, we would do that. So let's do the same for our guests. We grow 6 types of tea. I mean, here in Cambodia and in the rest of Asia, almost everything grows very fast. So we grow 6 different types of tea ourselves. And one of them being moringa tea or whatever type of things. But so yeah, feel free to take that initiative to realize that the guest is not feeling well. Let's bring them some tea. Very simple. It doesn't cost anything. Tea is just hot water with a leaf in it. So it's a simple thing, but it's a mind-blowing experience from the guest, because in the West, we're not used to that. All my staff has been trained and reminded on almost a daily basis that it is each of us, it's our guest. It's not my guest, it's our guest. As a collective thing, we represent Cambodia. And I mean, we all know the things. If stereotyping things, Dutch people, we all do drugs, we walk on wooden shoes, and we have tulips in our hand. I can tell you it's not. The French are all arrogant. It's not. According to Eurovision, French are pretty good at singing. And so it's we represent ourselves, we represent our country, represent our destination. And if we want to showcase, in my case, the best of Siem Reap, the best of Cambodia, then that starts with us. So if one of my I don't know, if a check-in, a guest says, I don't know, they really like coconut juice, then the check-in person will remember that. And if he wants to the next day on his way to work see somebody buying coconuts or selling coconuts, hey, buy one and spend the 50 cents. I'll give you the 50 cents back, no problem. And bring it to that guest, because that's a connection. And so that has been cemented as a philosophy in every single thing that we do.
Christian, again, a lot of amazing content here. So what I heard, and that's really important, and people do it, but they do it in standards and they don't always do it from the heart, but you do more than what is expected. So people, whether it's, let's stay with the staff, they come, they have a contract, they have hours, they have salary, and they have, benefits in their contract, but then they are getting more than what was expected. The guests, they come, they're okay, they're expecting a welcome drink, and they get a second welcome drink. And that, again, more than expected. I expect check-in 2 o'clock, I can come before, more than expected. What happens when you get more is you want to give back. It's human nature. And whether you give back in a reciprocal exchange or a transactional says, okay, like I received from my manager, I'm going to give to the guest, or I received from my parents and now I'm giving to my kids. But it's just our human nature to want to, okay, whatever I'm receiving, now I'm going to give it back. So really when it comes to, and the theme is staff retention, but it's really how I am in a place where I feel in abundance. I feel that I have everything I need. Now, all of a sudden coming from that space, of course, things are going to go well and people are going to be really happy. I want you to touch now on another topic, which is empowerment, which I think is the big one when it comes to staff retention, staff happiness. Can you tell us a little bit about how you empower your staff in your property? What are they allowed to do?
We're humans and things go wrong. We miss an airport pickup, whatever. Air conditioning doesn't work. All kinds of things could potentially go wrong. And that's okay. But if it goes wrong, let's deal with it. And let's not shove it under the table, think, oh, it's my department, but I'm not going to tell anyone. No, let's deal with it there and then. So all of my heads of department are able to give away whatever they want. If they want to give away the whole stay, please do. You don't have to ask me, just do it straight away. Take that initiative, make sure the guest is happy. We call it guest wowing, but it's take that initiative. And as a result, first of all, none of my staff have ever given away a full stay, but we have given away a cappuccino. We've given away a latte, a glass of wine, whatever type of scenario. When an air conditioning breaks down at 2 o'clock in the morning and we need to bring another room, then yes, give away that spa treatment. Doesn't matter. It doesn't really cost anything on the bigger scale of things. And so each of my staff is able to do that. And I just hear in the morning that, oh, boss, I've guest in this and that room, this happened, but I've done that. And okay, cool. Guest happy? Yes. Okay, fine. That's all that matters. If we have to, if I would say, oh no, I'm scared of my staff giving away too much money, and what if they give everything away? If I have, and if that would be the approach, by the time it reaches me, by the time the guest is so angry and so upset that he wants to speak to the boss, we're having far bigger problems, because then we're having to talk about serious compensation that I would have to give. And so if we deal with it by the root problem and straight away, then it's okay. And look, I think we all have that. If none of us mind if you are in a restaurant, in a bar, in a hotel, in whatever, and that person makes a mistake, that's fine. As long as they deal with it. If they don't deal with it and pretend nothing happened, then more and more we become angry, and eventually we are so angry that we demand to see the boss and all of that stuff. And by then, I mean, there's serious things. So by giving all my staff the option to do whatever it takes to make the guests happy, and giving the complete freedom to give away a whole holiday of whatever 4 nights at Jai House in case something has gone seriously wrong, then that's okay. And as I said, it has so far never happened yet.
No, but this is, guys, this is actually huge, because what you, Christian, what you're saying is that you are trusting your staff. You're telling them, I trust you. And when you trust someone, then they can feel safe. So when it comes to staff retention and happiness, that's a huge one, regardless, of course, of the procedure of what's being there. You just say, yeah, go ahead, whatever it is needed, I will back you, and it's okay. So that's fantastic. And the other thing which you pointed is the fundamental need as humans, I said it before, as wanting to be heard. Most customers want to be heard. There is something. Are you listening? Are you actively listening? Are you actually paying attention to what's going on? And when 90% of the time says, oh my God, this is beyond my decision level, I'm going to report that to someone else. What the customer is listening is, no one's listening. She's not listening to me. Okay. What is really going on is the poor girl or guy at the reception is over his head and is running to find a manager, and the manager is not there, and But what the guest is experiencing is, no one's listening to me. And if it's not dealt, of course, then the next day the guest is more angry and wants a refund. And if you're not giving that refund, then you get a negative review on Tripadvisor or on the internet, because people go and complain because they have not been heard. And the sooner you hear and the sooner you listen, the sooner you resolve the issue, the less of an issue it is. So this is huge at every level, from guest satisfaction to staff empowerment and staff satisfaction. Yeah. I
thought it never happened, but I just thought about one thing. When we just opened, we opened on December 2016, and I think in the 3rd week at night, we had a rather large rainstorm, and literally the complete ground floor of the hotel flooded. This is at 11 o'clock at night or something, but literally there were 2 centimeters of water all over the ground floor. And one of our very few guests in those days, a Japanese couple, now amazing people, then a little bit less, they went to bed early. They never really heard the rain outside. So when the gentleman went to use the bathroom at 11:30 in the evening, he, in his sleepy headway, he literally went to get out of bed to put his feet into the water, which was standing in his room. And that's obviously it's not a happy moment for him. Thank God we were already, we were with a team of around 10 people. We were trying to clean up the mess and get rid of the floods and whatever else. But instantly, my chief engineer, actually, he was the one who brought the guest to a 1st floor room, and also instantly decided that he would give away. Japanese people only stay 2 nights, so he would give away both nights as compensation and do the spa treatment the next morning. And I only met the guests the next morning to personally apologize to them, but he was already happy by then. Everything was already okay by then. So that's an example how it could have gone enormously wrong. I mean, this could have been, and rightfully so, a very big Tripadvisor comment, but it never did. And the guest has actually been back since. And now he's been back twice, and he's a very nice person now. But this is how it could have gone wrong, but thankfully didn't.
So listen up, guys. There is something quite important that we're touching here. We talked at the beginning at how we are both committed to the environment, and I know that Christian, you also have a tree planting program. You can tell us a few words about that. But I know, again, I worked with, and I know about 5,000 properties around the world. Sustainability is never the reason people book a property. It's always the reason they return, and it's always what they talk about. So in terms of guest retention, instead of guest communication about sustainability, because it's really about care. It's not about sustainability, it's about care. And when you show that you care, it's in every way. It's not like you separate caring about the environment, caring about the staff, caring about the guests. It just doesn't work. So when you go to places and say, oh, it's all about the guest is king. But that doesn't come from the heart. We feel it. We are animals. We sense when it's not genuine. But when there is a sense of care, it's an energy, it's a vibration that is radiating in every aspect of the place. It's just a happy vibration. So really, when it comes to staff retention, probably the staff are not going to join because of any of that. They come for the salary, they come for, the basic things of the job. But then what makes them stay is sustainability. What makes them want to be in the property and not quit is a sense of being taken care of, feeling safe, feeling seen, feeling, that I'm trusted, I belong. And that's, it's simple. Nothing we shared is rocket science, but it's not easy because it's a holistic approach to it. It's not just a set of procedures. It needs to be done from the root onwards. So yeah, let's elaborate a bit more on that if you don't mind.
I would also include the word pride. The pride is an important part of staying somewhere. Now, before we opened Chai House, when they were building the place, I decided to go travel, and I stayed in 14 hotels in 14 nights in 3 cities. So every night I would go to a different hotel and have my little book with me with things that are good on the left and things that are bad on the right. The left is I need to make sure we do the same. On the right, I need to make sure we never do this. And this is hotels from the Holiday Inn in Ceylon. So not my level, to Four Seasons and others. And I really looked at the way I feel. Now, so not by definition on the product, but more the way I feel. What kind of mental state am I in when I am at that hotel? One of the best hotels was actually the Holiday Inn in Ceylon. And because they treated me with really amazing service, I think. One of the things that I've learned down there is I was at the Pullman, I believe, in Bangkok, and they had the little card hanging where the towels are hanging behind in the bathroom, where they say, "This hotel, your towel plants a tree. So please help us save your towel, plant a tree," type of thing. And that made me think. And think, okay, so I did a quick Google search. How many rooms does the Pullman have globally? How many days of the year? How many towels are being saved? That's a forest that Pullman is planting. And multiply that by 2-3 years, we're talking about billions of trees that the Pullman Hotel Group is planting. So cool, that's spectacular. So I wrote initially on the left-hand side as being, I need to make sure we do the same. And then did a Google search, where did Pullman plant a tree? I mean, the Pullman Bangkok can't be planting it in front of their hotel. So where are they planting? I'm still searching where they're planting. And it's 4.5 years later. So that forest should now have billions and billions of more trees. It made me realize that it's marketing. It's fake. It made me feel good. It honestly made me feel good. And I would have never done further research if I would have just stayed there and then moved on to the next place. But so it made me feel good, but I also know it's fake. So that made me realize that if we do something, we actually have to do it. And it has to be, people need to do their own research and find out that, yes, I've actually done it. Now, helped a little bit by Google Street View, and helped by the fact that Cambodia is not the most progressive country. If you go today onto Google Street View for the River Road in Siem Reap, you see that there is 5 trees in total all along the road here. And that's because the Google Street View passed the hotel 5 years ago. And there's not even a hotel yet on Google Street View. If I would show you live pictures of today, we've been able to plant just over 2,000 trees, minimum size 3 meters, and we've created a bit of a fort in front of us. Hence the name Jaya House River Park. The greenery, trees, it makes me feel better. And so I believe that it makes us all feel better. And the experience at any hotel starts around 150 meters outside the hotel. We all know when you go to a new destination and you've never been somewhere and you think, oh my God, I hope I booked the right hotel. It looks nice from the pictures, but God knows, perhaps they're fabricated. We all, on the way from the airport to your hotel, you start thinking, God, I hope it's not here because this is a dreadful area. And then you arrive to a nice area and you think, oh, let's hope it's here. And if it's then not there and you go again to a dreadful area, it brings you up and it brings you down. So I need to make sure that the guests, by the time they arrive here, that they start to feel like, oh my God, I hope it's here. Now that's the trees and greenery and that all enhances that experience. So that's why I wanted to plant the trees, and it just became a bit too much, and it's now 2,000 something indeed trees. And it has helped us dramatically. It has actually, guests have booked us because of that, because of our image, basically.
Yeah, no, you said something really important is do what you say and say what you do. Is really that idea of communicating in integrity, and especially these days more than ever, people will really see through the communication and the marketing, and they will not trust you. And the more you're just transparent and honest about it, and that's okay. And when you struggle and you say we don't do it for that reason, that's also okay. But people feel that. Now let's talk about recruitment, because I believe that staff retention also starts with having the right people in the property. So tell us a little bit about how do you recruit the right people so that they don't leave 2 months later?
I live in a country, but first of all, I have hired everyone myself. I've been sitting in every single interview from at every level. Cambodia is not a country where I can hire on education. It's not a country where I can hire on levels of English. It's not a country where I can use any of the traditional Western ways of send us your CV and all of that stuff. So you hire by heart. We hire by smile, really. That's what it comes down to almost. Of course, they all. Things are still new here in Siem Reap, and Cambodia, which means the cover letter is generally translated from Google, and they're all the same. The CVs are all the same, and the answers to whichever question I ask is always largely the same as well. So you need to hire on heart, and one of them being a prime example of that is a gentleman who became rather high up here in the hotel. But during his interview, I actually broke down in tears. I had to go to use the bathroom and leave for a split second because I was emotionally affected by him. The gentleman, when I asked, so, okay, where are you working right now? He mentioned a particular hotel in Siem Reap that I know is really, really bad and is treating its staff absolutely vile. So, okay, that's good. And what's your salary down there? And he told me that it was $67. I also know that that's below what the government says it should be. But okay, that's good. So I was talking a bit more, and turns out to be he has a family. He lives with his family of 4, and so that's good. So I asked at some point, so did you have breakfast this morning? Did you have food? No. And he answers very honest. No, I had my last food was yesterday. Okay. I'm looking at him, and I see that he's wearing black shoes, which is a sign of respect in Cambodia. Normally people wear slippers. The black shoes, so that's a serious moment. But they were, first of all, very old. Second of all, a lot too big. His trousers used to be black, but clearly been washed that often that they're not that black anymore. And his white shirt had turned yellow. So presumably he's borrowed all of those clothes from someone. But it shows he's made an effort. And I then, because he affected me so much, I said at some point, now here at Jaya House, we always have food during an interview. It's very important. He said, okay. So, oh yeah, okay, good. If that's always done, then that's what we do. So we went to have lunch with him. And this is for a really not that high up position. I have never seen anyone eat food that fast. I had 3 plates by the time I had finished my first. The guy was so hungry that he was skip all the things that you and I think are normal. For him it was all about the food. He forgot where he was. There was food in front of him. He obviously got the job, and he has no skills. He's never been to school, and he's now rather high up here in the hotel. I become emotional when I talk about him, because he is the most perfect person with the most perfect character that has been with me from day one, basically. I started with saying that I am where I am because of my education and because of this and that, but largely because of where I'm born. And this gentleman, his career is much bigger compared to mine. He is born in a family where they lived on $67 a month with 4 people. And they had days that they simply didn't have enough money for food. And this is 4 years ago. Never mind 20 years ago when there was the war. And when his brain cells were formed, he just didn't have the luxury of having enough food in his life. And so that's...
So Christian,
yeah.
Let's go into, what are you looking at when you recruit someone?
Gut feeling.
What do you, okay. Gut, that's all.
That's all. Gut feeling and their initiative. As I said, the gentleman who borrowed black shoes, that's a major sign that you really want a job. The fact that they're too big, who cares? The fact that obviously they weren't polished, that also doesn't matter. It's the fact that he had thought about his interview. That's all we hire on.
Have you ever experienced a staff member stealing from a guest or from the property?
Nope.
No,
we've never had that at all. But that's in 15 years. I've never had that. The only thing that I had once, and this is 3.5 years ago, is, and I'm from the Netherlands, so I've seen a few people doing drugs in my life. This boy was, I think he was 19 or so, and one of his friends said that, no, you should do ice. That's really cool. If you, as a man, do ice, that makes you a man, and that's the cool thing to do. Now, he was my public areas cleaner, and he also did it at work whilst I'm there. So I called him into the office. Boom, what's up? Nothing, boss. Long story short, I went with him to his mother. We guided him and through a period of 3 months about explaining about drugs. I do believe this was his first time, but unfortunately he did it right in front of me. And we continued to pay his salary, mainly because his whole family was dependent on it. And he still works here today and has never done drugs since. It's merely, his friends told him to do it and he thought it was a cool thing. That's the worst that has ever happened. A 19-year-old boy that tries to be a man and made a mistake.
So to stay with staff recruitment. I know because we both explore reputation management and the importance of reviews to attract guests, and we'll have another episode where we'll talk about the fact that you don't need sales rep, you just need to have a good reputation. On the staff recruitment side, how do you recruit the staff? How do they come to your place? Is it by word of mouth coming from the other staff, and in what proportion? And yeah, tell us a little bit about the process of recruitment.
We ever put out one ad. We are in the rest of the world. They've got CNN and BBC and all kinds of other interesting news channels. We have Facebook. Whatever Facebook says, that's our truth. So we put out one ad on Facebook, and that's all we've ever done. The rest is all word of mouth. That ad was in Khmer and in English, so in our own language and in English, because you need to approach different levels of people. But that's the only ad we've ever done, and it's always been word of mouth. And we still have a pile of CVs of people wanting to work here, but I mean, we already had 107 staff for 36 rooms. That's enough. So it's word of mouth. Eventually, once Siem Reap is very small, people talk to their friends, people talk to their family members and to whoever else. And if you treat people with respect, that's all we want, really. If you can break down life to quite simply just respect. And I would like to think that that's what I give to our staff, and that has paid off, and that's paid off big time.
And I think to stay with the image that you had, if people see that place of work, that hotel as a home, then they behave like family. Yes. And that's also how you treat and how you behave as a family member. So it's no longer, okay, my boss, but it's that relation. What is your turnover rate, if you know it?
We had, we can only talk about 2019, really. We had 4 people leaving.
And for everyone, I really recommend you know that. That's an important rate to know, because if you don't measure it, then you cannot change it. So having an idea of having goals, okay, this is what it is. This is our turnover rate, and then let's improve that. That's something that as humans we tend to always work towards. Tell me a little bit, and then we'll take questions, guys, if you have. Tell me about how do you collect feedback? Because we said it's important to be heard. And how do you create the space for people to express themselves? So how does that work in your properties?
Our staff?
Yeah.
We have meetings, call it round table meetings without a round table. And that's sometimes sitting on the floor in the meeting room upstairs, or dependent on, where we listen to problems, and that's by department, and it's well, we listen to problems. So I know it could be a gardener meeting, where they come up with the things that they actually want to start working earlier. They want to start working at 7 instead of the 8:30 or the 9 that is in my head, but they prefer to work at 7 and then go home earlier. And look, if that's what makes you happy, then why not? Or an engineering department who needs some kind of a screwdriver because that saves an hour a day. Okay, cool. Give me all of those type of problems, and if that's the fact that my staff doesn't have this or that machinery, so it's up to them to tell me all of those problems. Are you there? Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, I had no internet here, so I'm changing computer and changing. That's what happens in Bali. That's why I have two computers, so I can switch to the second one. And those meetings, are they just random or are they scheduled? Is it always, every Monday we have a meeting? How does the feedback and the communication? Is it
They're a
structured?
little bit random. They're a little bit random. They're still at least once a month, but they're a little bit random. Because I'm not that good at having every single week or every single Monday or every single things. So yeah, they're random when they're needed.
Cool.
Shall I answer a few questions?
Yeah, let's go. We have what are the staff benefits different than that other hotels would give?
First of all, the biggest one is respect. Also, tips and service charge. And this sounds really, really strange, but certain hotels take a portion of the tips and the service charge for the hotel, breakages of glass or napkin service or God knows what. Here, 100% of all tips, of all service charge goes towards the staff. I have a team of five different departments, one person per department. They calculate the service charge every month, and they tell me the amount, and I announce it at the staff party. So it's a sense of belonging, and even when somebody gets a tip, anything below 4,000 real or $1, you can keep. Anything above 4,000 real or $1, that has to be shared by everyone, which means the gardener, who generally doesn't see guests, or the engineering team, or whoever else, the dishwasher in the kitchen, they all get the same service charge and tips. So it's part of the together we do it. In fact, the slogan of the hotel is "Together we will make it happen," and that's not, I don't know, the pretty people at the front office. They get all the tips and service charge because they know how to talk, but it's collective. Everyone gets the same amount of money every single time.
Okay, someone says, how to avoid borders between familiarity and work, from Amarata.
That's a bit more difficult. Mainly, we tend to have at least once a week, we have guests crying when they leave. So there's an enormous connection when the guests leave the property. Over Christmas, it's even more. And as a result, there's a lot of Facebook friends. They all have friends and all of that stuff. I've explained that we're still a business. We still need to keep professionalism and to showcase the best of our country. And so again, this has been explained by examples of how would you feel if the waiter of a restaurant where you've been 4 years ago would suddenly message you, "Oh, not so good, boss." Good. Okay, so let's not do that. Let's keep our professionalism. Now, I do know that several of my staff members are now Facebook between brackets friends, and okay, that's fine. As long as they portray the correct image of the country, and that by and large goes pretty well, I have to admit. So we don't have that many problems with it.
Tell us a bit more about trainings and how do you deliver that? Is that formalized when you know in advance how it's going to be delivered, or is that more ongoing training? Tell us a little bit how you operate.
We don't have training, i.e. training in the sense of training. We have explaining, and that's very different. Only at the beginning, when we just opened, and there was more to build the team, did we use an outside source, a lady called Michelle Morin from a company called Possibilities World. Unbelievable lady. simply one of the best people on this planet, I think. She is able to connect with everyone within a day, and at all levels. And she's able to make sure that they connect. She's done trainings all over Asia, but happens to live in Siem Reap and happens to speak fluent Khmer. But she's, for instance, done the trainings of Amman in lots of different destinations. So we use her for all the stuff to get a 2-day training about teamwork and initiative taking, all of that stuff. But since that training, it's all about explaining. I mean, she's in the first few weeks that we opened. We had a British guest arriving that flew London, Bangkok, Siem Reap. So by the time they arrived here, it was 9:30 in the morning or something. And my staff had absolutely no clue why this guest would be tired. It's 9:30 in the morning. Why are you tired? I mean, you must have. So the concept of, we had to go to Heathrow and use the M25. We're stuck in traffic, check in, 14-hour flight, wait at Bangkok airport. That all made no sense to us, because all we knew, it's 9:30 in the morning, so you should be awake. So only after explaining how that works, and that's literally with a round ball and orange, explaining how the world works and how the sun works and how it could be nighttime there or daytime here. Only then did they, oh my God, really? Oh, okay, now we understand. And that's why they understand that sometimes people are not so talkative. They don't want to talk, just give me my bloody room and that's it. And they'll become nice in tomorrow when they've slept a little bit. So it's explaining and not training.
Christian, you you mentioned the fact that you were paying normal salaries, that you're not paying more than other. Can you tell us a bit about your the salary culture, and also someone was asking about pay rise and how you deal, what's the deal there?
We pay. I don't want to pay the highest salary. I don't want to pay the lowest salary. I mean, it's the highest salary, you get the wrong guest, the wrong type of person, and the lowest salary, you also get the wrong person. So just normal, middle of the range. And on top of that, as I said, tips, service charge, and the best healthcare in the things. We've honestly never had an issue. I mean, to be honest, I don't really know how to deal with the issue because we've never had it. We've never had.
Do you have rules like after X number of years, your salary will increase by that much? Is it communicated ahead, or when you change, you become head of department, then you get the pay rise? Just a bit more of how that works.
Look, I want what's best for every single person. So if somebody would resign because he or she has a much better job somewhere else, fantastic. I'm happy to write a recommendation letter for you and get you that job. I'm even willing to make that phone call for you. That's not the problem. So we aim to push everyone, all 107 staff, to a level as high as they possibly can get. That's a very personalized approach, and and as a result, they very much work on that. One of my staff, I mean, during COVID, we had a gentleman in our F&B department, but obviously we're closed. I mean, the F&B department has no guests, so I made him in charge of a tiny initiative that we did along the side, hotels joining hands, and he worked on that and eventually saw us donate 54,000 plastic-free and styrofoam-free meals. So we had to arrange 400 meals every day. He has to pay for them. He has to make sure they're plastic-free. He has to make sure they're styrofoam-free. He has to make sure that it's explained to whoever makes them that that's what we want, and continuity and all of those things. Now, that guy, who was a junior person in F&B 2 years ago, has grown massively, all because of the experiences that he's had, the mistakes he's made, and but the lessons he's learned. So it's all about experience. And if I can write him a letter for another job, then I will more than happy do that for him. So I'm trying to be a personal approach to their respective futures.
Someone's asking about, careless employees who tend to break plates and stuff more than the average. How do you handle that?
First of all, again, it's not really an issue. I can only look at myself. If I would be careless and think I don't give a monkey if I work here or not, it's me who has a problem. There's something in me that makes me unhappy. No one wants to be careless. It's more that that person has other
the symptom.
So I had a staff member who was severely alcoholic. As a result, even if he wanted to care, he couldn't care because for him, alcohol was obviously more important. Spent a lot of time with him in trying to explain about your daughter, about this, about that, and all kinds of other stuff. Speak to this particular person and find out what the issue is. I mean, I think everyone wants to care because everyone wants to belong to something. And in our case, it's a family and it's a hotel. If there's a person who doesn't seem to care, and that person, there are other issues and other problems that might be rather easy to resolve.
And also, guys, it's also back to that idea of mimicking each other. It's just what we do as humans. So if you're surrounded by people that are paying attention, naturally you will be paying attention. It's the whole idea of you're not just an individual, you're part of an ecosystem, and that's often what's happening. Someone's asking a really interesting concept, work-life balance culture. And I don't like the word balance, which, you explain that, you're not working. So I call it more work-life integration rather than balance. How does it feel for the staff? How do you create an environment that helps that integration work well for them?
Well, first of all, we do not have split shifts because I think they're horrible. I think they're very company-driven, money-making things, and it's not good for any staff member. So we've never had split shifts at all in any department.
Split shift, can you define just for everyone?
Well, it's some hotels now they have breakfast staff, and that at 11 o'clock that staff should go home, and then come back at 4 o'clock to do from 4 till 9 or something.
I did that. I remember my first job for a year. Thank you very much. Yeah, that's horrible.
We don't have that at all. So there's 2 shifts, morning or afternoon. It's also almost always the same shift. So it's not on Monday you have morning shift, and on Tuesday you have evening shift, and Wednesday morning, all of those things. No, it's always the same. So we go into a rhythm. It's perfectly fine to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning if that's what you do every day. But if it changes, then it's a lot more difficult. So the work-life balance, I think, is critical. Staff need to be rested, so they're energetic and they can see things. For myself, if that's the question, it's perhaps a bit more difficult, mainly because, again, I don't have a job. I'm happy to be here, and there's nowhere else. There's not many other places in the world where I would want to be. So work-life balance for myself is a bit more difficult, and it's definitely something I need to work on. But for my staff, it's critical. They do 9 hours a day, the same shift every single time. Obviously, there are some exceptions, but in principle, and we have never had one single split shift.
So, question from Jean-Marc Gillon, Gillon, sorry if I butcher your name, asking about how do you handle people? You said you're hiring people with the right attitude, means they're probably not always skilled for the tasks. And how do you handle when the tasks are not executed? And how do you handle it? How do the supervisor handle it? How do we go about it?
A lot of explanations, a lot. That really is the main thing. And sometimes you have to repeat things 3, 4, 5, 10, 20, 30 times. But explanations. There's a difference in simply not understanding it because it's completely alien, or not wanting to. And if somebody has some, I don't care, that's a different story. But if somebody if it's just a step too far, then to continue to explain or find another job. One of the prime examples for this was a gentleman I hired as an IT specialist, because I honestly, he said in his interview that he'd done IT classes. So cool, fantastic, very happy. And so I hired him as an IT person. This is before we opened again. And it only turned out to be that, yes, he had done an IT class, but it was on a desktop. So when I asked him if he could turn on my laptop, he had no clue because he'd never worked on the bloody thing before. So he didn't know where my laptop, how to turn it on. Now, obviously, that gentleman, quite quickly, I told him that no worries, but we actually are really quite busy in the HR department because we're opening and need a lot of stuff. So would you be able to help in the HR department as an junior HR executive? The beautiful job title for ticking a box that you're working, tick. He felt, oh my God, yes, it's very important, that department too. So he went there and he's still there today. And it's quite quickly do you realize if somebody is, if it's a question of I don't care, or if it's simply in Cambodia's case that he'd never seen a laptop before, so therefore he couldn't turn on the bloody thing.
Do you ever fire anyone?
I have not yet fired anyone.
Wow.
No.
Wow.
One day you might, and that's the
yeah, it's that it's the person who's at the wrong position, and as long as you create the environment for them to be in the right position, or I guess if they don't feel they're a right fit, do they just leave by themselves? Is that how it works?
Look, it's I think for all of us, as persons, but definitely as humans, after a certain amount of time, it's time to change, and it's time to grow, and it's time to do new things. And I see that in staff members, and you think, well, for you, in a few months from now, it's time to do something different. So my current hotel manager, he started off as front office manager. I then pushed him into housekeeping, and he's now the hotel manager. I've done the same with lots of other people who, I mean, as I said, dishwasher, who through front office and F&B end up in my sales department. And so it's to do the same job every single time, the same thing, the same time, every day becomes boring. That's for me, that's for you, that's for all of us. So that's also for my staff. So you also need to find where their skills actually are. I mean, we're living in a tourism town. So there are not that many other jobs. We don't have we don't have an industry. We don't have this. We don't have that. And look, we're not all good at being a waiter. We're all of us have different skills. So it's about finding that skill set.
Christian, we've talked quite extensively now about staff retention and what to do, and really your approach is common sense, and at the same time, it's not done enough. So there is probably a need for all these to be put out. What would you say? Let's do a bit of perspective now. People are asking about, okay, now is COVID time, and how do you think it's shifting expectations from the staff? And I'm also give my 2 cents of that. But how do you think things are going to change on the other side?
With regards to staff?
Yeah.
It's purely having a job right now. The Angelique Batuna is asking, during this COVID time, do you still keep all this 107 staff? The COVID happened, I mean, the results of COVID in Cambodia happened in February of last year. We have kept all of the staff until February of this year, so pay their monthly salaries. We have had discussions, individual discussions with each of them about their own personal financial situation. I mean, some of them have loans, some of them mortgages, and all kinds of other stuff. Where needed, staff have been given a personal loan. I mean, one staff member who needed a year ago urgently $500, instead of going to the bank, no, he went to a loan shark and he received his $500 but had to pay back $1,950. Now we lent him $500 to pay back immediately everything, so there's no interest, and he borrows now the $500 from us, and there's no interest on him, so it saves him a lot of money now. That kind of conversations have we had with all staff, individually and confidentially, and we've done a very personalized approach. I mean, I have staff members whose family have some land, and they have become farmers again. So they're actually quite well off. Everything is pretty all right for them. Other staff have gone back to the countryside and live down there. And I have still 8 staff members who simply don't have anyone else. They don't have land. They don't have family in the countryside. They were, for whatever reason, they're alone. Those 8 are still here today and are still working with us today. And I mean, we're mopping the floor 27 times a day for an empty hotel. But that's merely just to keep them busy and to make sure that they survive. And those are also the weakest. They were the weakest people then, and they're still the weakest people today. So that gentleman that I said earlier with lepra, or who used to have lepra, he is still here, and 7 others. So but each of our 107 staff minus those 8 are all we're in weekly communication with them, and all of them are doing well, and are dealing with the new situation perhaps even better than I am.
So I feel that, throughout all these interviews, what we hear over and over is really the same concept, which is the fundamental concept behind hospitality, which is care. And it's a universal concept. It doesn't apply just to the guest, but in every aspect of caring. The way you individualized your answer for the different staff member really shows your deep sense of care, and care for the property, care for the land around you, care for every staff member. And, at the end, it pays. Your property is full, the occupancy rate, when outside COVID time, of course. But, it's really that idea of showing that you care, and that's pretty much is the answer. So can you just, coming to an end, and then I want to announce a little bit what's happening next for the next session, but is there anything else you'd like to add on the topic?
Well, I'm convinced, I'm absolutely convinced, and mainly because I've done it 3 times now. Commitment towards a team. Every single one in that team, including the ones that at the beginning you might think, oh, I don't like you. Commitment towards them is the base of everything. I am committed, I'm 100% convinced that I could work at any hotel, anywhere in the world, and make it work. Because we, as humans, have one thing in common, is that we want to be taken care of. At home, in our private life, at work, we want to be valued and we want to be respected. And it all comes down to the same thing. So whoever is in charge of whichever department, number one thing is take care of your staff. And of course, in all of the people that I've been working with now for the past 15 years in Siem Reap, each of them, if I would ask them tomorrow to work for me again, they would, including the ones who said that now I don't know, he wants, boss, I want to have a promotion because my friends are all being promoted and I want to be the same. So you need to promote me. And if you don't promote me, I will leave. Okay, well, in that case, I think you should leave. because I'm not going to promote you because your friends are being promoted. It doesn't work like that way in the world. So including those, all of them would work with me because they know that we actively and sincerely have cared and do care. And that's the base of everything. Obviously, also, and it's the same again all over the world, each of us also have our own problems. And that could be personal, could be financial, could be mental, could be physical. I cannot solve everything. I can't, that's not possible, but I could make an effort, and that effort is appreciated. And that effort is enough to keep the vast majority of staff simply here and happy. And it's and because we're such a family, somebody's asking me, Chandima is asking me about productivity. It's good. And we don't really have much of a productivity issues. Again, because it's the same, it's because we're a family. One of my other staff members, they will say something to their colleagues, hey, come on, work a bit harder. Or they'll find out if there is an issue and then they take care of each other. And I mean, they swap days off and to make each other care, because that's caring for people filters down, and we all look to the boss, and if the boss makes a swing, then at the bottom that's a storm. And it's the same with caring for people. It all filters down. So good examples and bad examples are filtering down, and good behavior creates another good behavior, basically.
All right. I think we've covered quite a bit. I think the next theme for next month is contributing to the community for next week. Sorry. And I think I would like for you to introduce a little bit the theme and how it is important to you. And over, you will see that we really talk about sustainability, approaching it from different angles. Of, once you care, and it shows in different ways. And to answer the question of what's happening next when it comes to COVID, I think we are entering a time of uncertainty where we just don't know how things are evolving. And I think your ability to be agile, to be flexible, to be able to be honest about what's going on and do what is right according to your knowledge is something that is going to be very valuable, because we live in a world where people feel that they need to have all the answers and they need to know how things are. But if you are having just a human approach to things, says, okay, this is what I know, and to the best of my ability, this is what we can do. Whether it's the guests are going to feel safe or your staff are going to be wanting to be with you, is pretty much what I feel about. We are entering an era where people want authenticity. They just want people to not say things that have no meaning behind anymore. I think we need to have some reality check and honest communication. And when you are able to provide that, that creates safety. Doesn't mean I'm going to promise you something that I cannot deliver. Doesn't mean that I'm no better what the future will be, because, as you all know, this is really something that we control less and less. But your ability to just be honest about it and present with the situation, I think is something that really going to be appreciated and valued by the staff and the guests. So, and your ability to be agile is what's going to define a successful business from one that's going to be bankrupt, and that's, we could talk about, we'll talk about sales and marketing and promotion in other sessions, but it's really that you are no longer defined by some kind of pre-mix marketing that you've come up with at the beginning. You need to be much more agile. So Christian, first of all, thank you so much for all your wisdom. That was pretty epic, as I expected. I'm glad you guys have been all be able to join. Tell us about next week's theme. Give us some key points about the things you've done in terms of contributing to the community for your property.
First of all, I highly suggest every single hotel globally to charge your guests $5, and I wouldn't even ask them, simply put it into your room rate. And take $5 of every room every night and divide it amongst 1, 2, 3 NGOs that are near and dear to you and that you know will use that money correctly. So we support Green Gecko Center for Street Children. That's an initiative that I have personally supported for 14 or 15 years now. We support the Small Art School in Siem Reap. And we support the Cambodian Landmine Museum. The landmines in Cambodia is still an issue. Every week, people are affected by landmines. So those mines were given to Cambodia by different countries, but unfortunately are not cleared by those countries. So I wanted to do our little bit. So every month.
You also created a market, right? Which is quite a big deal in Siem Reap. You created a little initiative once a week that is now
daily.
Quite a big deal.
Yeah, I don't, and it's very strange when I'm saying this after what I just said, but I don't by definition believe in NGOs. There are some exceptions, and I'd like to think those exceptions we support, but I don't think we need to have an NGO for everything. What is far more important is jobs, because jobs gives responsibility, credibility, and also self-respect. So about 9 years ago, I started a little initiative, initially once a month, the Made in Cambodia market, and that grew out to every single day. And wasn't it for COVID, it would have still been here today. And after COVID, I'm pretty sure it will continue.
And how many stalls?
They had last year they had 68 stalls. So it's 68 families that are having a full-time job and making things. I mean, we're not all engineers, we're not all university people, we're not all things like that. Sometimes making a waste basket out of recycled plastic is what's needed to create a job. And so I have lots of examples of all of those things. And yeah, that market is now paying for itself. I'm not really that involved anymore because the management is now in Khmer hands and they deal with everything, and that's it.
So next week, guys, we will be talking about why it's so important. And we've talked about taking care of the guests and of the staff and how it's impacting the overall experience of the guest. We're going to see it from the connection to the community, but you will see that step by step there is kind of an image of what the hospitality of tomorrow could look like and how you can address all aspects of your job. And at the bottom line, the guests come, it's just, as a side benefit, they stay in your hotel. You don't even have to do anything. They just come without even you focusing about it. And that's really a fundamental lesson that we can apply to everything else in our life, where often we're focused is, how can I get more guests? How can I get more guests? How can I get richer? How can I get richer? How can I get richer? And all of a sudden, if you change your perspective and you just stay in your truth and in your dharma and just being honest and in integrity, guests come as a side benefit. You will become wealthy as a side benefits. The focus is no longer just getting the occupancy higher. And that's quite a shift in the hospitality industry. And that's also something that is very important to communicate about. And we'll talk about it with the owners, because, we are GMs or operators, we're not necessarily owners. But when you have the right communication, you can actually get your whole strategy aligned with that. And that can shift a lot of things. And it becomes a real place for expansion at the personal and professional level. So yeah, that's what we are all about. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. We were 88 in this call, and that's the first one of this series. So I'm very excited. Please keep sharing the link and the invitation for, I will come back to you, Christian. So just, keep sharing it, guys, so we can have more people being open to this kind of messages. Please, you've got my email as I emailed you. So provide me some feedbacks, what you liked, what you didn't like, what you want more of, so we can always improve. Christian, yes, what would you say?
I think one of the main questions, if you have to speak later on or at some point to owners and all kinds of other people, is how do we pay for all of this? I mean, where does the money come from? We should be a charity. We're not a charity. We're a commercial business. We're a profitable business as well. And so I'll explain all of that in due course. That we're not some kind of a rich NGO that has a hotel on the side. No, we're a hotel which was aiming to make a profit, but just has a very different way of thinking, and how that in our case has paid off. And feel free to look us up onto our social media channels, Jaya House Hotels or Tripadvisor, so you can read for yourself what our numerous guests have said. Cool.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone. We're going to close for now. I like to start and finish on time. So we're 5 minutes to 12 here in Bali. Again, thank you so much for making the time. Stay strong. I know these times are not easy for absolutely no one, but it's time for us to redefine the life we want to live, the place we want to work from. It's see the positive out of it. Yeah. It is fantastic. And now you continue the sentence, because it's tempting to stay into the negative loophole, and that doesn't really help. And community is one of the beautiful things that come out of this crazy story that we're all living. So let's stay strong. Let's stay together, reach out to each other, support each other, show that you care, because whatever you give, you're going to receive in ways you don't expect over and over. We are the one we've been waiting for. You are the one you've been waiting for. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Christian, for your amazing wisdom. Love you all. See you soon. See you next week. Bye-bye.